Hey everyone! So today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical idea from a Korean lecture. It asks a really tough question. What if our desire to help people is actually hurting them? Yeah, I know, it's a challenging thought, but it might just change the way you think about service forever. So let's just get right to it. This is the question at the very core of this philosophy. Is the act of helping the poor fundamentally wrong? This isn't about small adjustments. It's about questioning the entire foundation of what we even call aid. All right, first up, let's unpack this central idea, the paradox of helping. How can something that feels so right, our good intentions, somehow lead to really bad outcomes? Okay, let's get into the philosophical meat of it. We're going to explore the argument for why just giving things away, even things people desperately need, might actually be doing more harm than good. So this entire philosophy is built on one core concept, and it's called divine hardship. The idea goes like this. A higher power, whether you call it God or the universe, deliberately puts obstacles in our path. Now, these aren't meant as punishments. They're lessons, specifically designed to help us grow and reach a higher level of understanding or enlightenment. And here's where it gets really tricky. If you see someone struggling and you step in to solve their problem for them, let's say you dig them a well, you've essentially stolen their lesson. You've taken away the very hardship that was meant to be their test, their opportunity for growth. You've basically just short-circuited their entire path to enlightenment. And wow, this quote from the source really puts it in stark terms, doesn't it? Giving them a house and a well removes the reason for them to achieve enlightenment. God was wrong, or I was wrong. It basically frames our well-intentioned help not as kindness, but as an act of hubris, as if we're challenging a divine plan. Okay, so if just giving people stuff is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, let's get into the alternative. This is a whole new rulebook for how to support individuals in a way that actually works, according to this philosophy. And here it is. This is the fundamental shift in thinking. You don't start by trying to fix the material problem. No, you focus on building up the person's character, their drive, their resilience first. The house, the well, the money, all of that can come later, but only after you've built the person. Now, what's so interesting is that this isn't just a vague idea. There's a practical method to it, a step-by-step process. First, you just watch, you observe. Then you give just a little bit of help. Step 3, you watch again, you gauge their effort. Are they using that little bit of help to try and improve their own situation? And only then, only if you see that progress, do you scale up your support. It's basically aid that has to be earned, not just a freebie. This quote really nails the principle down. See, the support isn't just about making one person's life easier. It's seen as an investment in someone who shows they have the potential to give back to the world around them. So the amount of help you give is tied directly to their character and their effort. All right, so that's the model for helping one person. But what happens when you blow this idea up to a massive scale? How does this philosophy of building the person apply not just to an individual, but to entire nations? Let's look at how this becomes a new model for international aid. I mean, the contrast here couldn't be more clear, right? Traditional aid, where you give things, schools, supplies, food, is framed as something that just creates dependency. But this new model, where you give opportunities, like work, skills, and projects, is all about building self-sufficiency from the ground up. So how does that actually work on the ground? Well, the philosophy lays out 5 key principles for any project. 1. Use appropriate technology, which just means technology that the local people can actually learn, use, and maintain themselves. 2. Choose strategic locations, often far from big cities, to build new communities and avoid creating social conflict. 3, and this is a big one, you have to employ local workers. 4, those workers are trained by experienced mentors. And 5, you absolutely have to prioritize sourcing your materials locally. In that last point about local sourcing, it's not just a friendly suggestion, it's a hard rule. And this is the magic number, 70%. To make sure a project is truly building up the local economy, a minimum of 70% of all the materials have to come from the local area. This is what creates that sustainable ripple effect that lift up the whole community, not just a single project. Okay, so we've got the philosophy for individuals and the rulebook for projects, but this thing doesn't stop there. It scales up even further into this massive, incredibly ambitious vision for the entire planet, with one very specific nation being tasked to lead the whole thing. The whole argument is really rooted in South Korea's own history. I mean, think about it. Right after the war, the country was devastated and survived on massive international aid. Today, it's an economic giant. The argument is that this incredible journey creates a unique moral obligation, a kind of debt to give back to the world in a big way. So why South Korea specifically? Because the argument goes, it has this perfect storm of factors. It has the right kind of appropriate technology from its own rapid development. It has a huge pool of skilled, experienced retirees who can serve as mentors. And it has what's framed as this moral duty to lead this new kind of global service. And this is the single boldest claim in the entire lecture. Get this. The source argues that if this model is rolled out perfectly, with South Korea leading the way, global hunger could be completely wiped out in just 7 years. It's an absolutely staggering claim. And this final quote just brings the whole mission home. It's not just a practical plan. It's framed as a national destiny, a way for a country that was once on the receiving end of aid to become the ultimate giver and finally repay its debt to all of humanity. So, what are we supposed to make of all this? Is this a genuine blueprint for a better world, a truly revolutionary way to solve our biggest problems? Or is it a beautiful but flawed utopia, one that just doesn't account for the messy realities of poverty and human nature? That's the big question this philosophy leaves us to wrestle with.